Thanks very much for you both introduced the subject very clearly, and I will be very narrow in what I will be talking about. I fully acknowledge that you have this debate how to measure, development, and you need to go well beyond GDP or per capita GDP. And the Fitoussi Stiglitz Commission, to which you've been part, and was a very important milestone in that. And of course, I've done myself work with Angus Deaton, who is coming a day after tomorrow on creative destruction and subjective well-being. So here what we've done, with my co-authors on the American paper and the French paper, is to take a very narrow view, and it was very much motivated by the debate on the secular stagnation. So this is produced by Gilles Berset and his co-authors, and that shows the evolution of long-term of total factor productivity and labor productivity in the US since the late 90s. But in fact, if I could prolong if I had a pointer, I have a pointer. If I could prolong this one, it would go much higher. So that would be the steam engine wave. This is the electricity chemistry wave, and this is the ICT wave, you see. And Gordon's view is that, in fact, the best was here, then a bit less good, and a bit less good, and Gordon's view is by extrapolation. There are people who do economic history, they say you don't need theory, you can just extrapolate, you see, and then, we are doomed, essentially. We are, all what was worth inventing has been invented, essentially. So it is, and in particular, we are interested to understand the decline in productivity growth over the past period, since particularly 2006 in the US. So that was we were after. So we were directly talking about GDP because we wanted to understand. We were directly into Gordon. So let's forget about the other aspects, which are very important, but let's try to focus on that. And we thought that one candidate could be the fact that you don't measure properly TFP growth. So, and in fact, it has not been, we got somewhere, but not quite where we wanted, because we did not truly explain the decline in TFP growth, but we got something, I believe. So it's true that meanwhile, you had this decline in TFP growth. In the US, if you look at the annual flow of patent applications and patent grants, you see that the flow goes up, you see, and there is an acceleration in patenting. So that already raised, there is some smoking gun that maybe innovation and patenting is just la partie émergée de l'iceberg, the upper end of the iceberg of innovation, okay? So, and this also called our attention. So here on the horizontal axis, you rank US sectors in terms of their average rate of creative destruction over a certain time period. And so here you have sectors which have a lot of creative destruction, those who don't. And here you have the correlation between TFP growth and the flow of patents. And what you seem to find, you have various ways to represent this. You get that the sectors where you have more creative destruction, there is less of a correlation between TFP growth and the flow of patents. So somehow that also raised the possibility that creative destruction might have something to do with the fact that you don't factor in innovation in the measurement of productivity growth. This is no proof at all. It was just a correlation that called our attention and said maybe there could be a reason why innovation is not properly taken into account. So then the question is, why would particularly innovation involving creative destruction not be taken into account? And the answer is that the statistical office, they don't know how to deal with goods that are replacing other goods, you see? And they resort to what we call imputation. In Europe, people call that extrapolation sometime. And the idea is that for each product category in the economy, to compute the inflation rate corresponding to this product category, you just restrict attention to the surviving products. And then you extrapolate from there to the whole product category. So I always give the example of a bottle. I say, you look this bottle, we know the monetary values. And so I know between yesterday and today that the monetary value has gone up. Yeah, I know it's pure inflation. You have made no change to the bottle. Then you make the second experiment. You just change the top of the bottle, but you leave the rest unchanged. more or less you could, and you see that the monetary value has gone up, more or less you could figure out how much of it is inflation and how much of it corresponds to a real improvement in the good. The problem is that if I replace this bottle by this object, I have no clue what to do. And that's why the statistical office does imputation. It restricts attention for each product category to the goods that have not been replaced, and they extrapolate to the rest of the product category. And you have,
it's not a bottle.
which one? This? No, I know, it should be a bottle. Yeah, we start with Magritte. It's true, if I had Georges de Ménil, he would tell you, that's not like my painting. Yeah. Okay. So let me give you a numerical example. Suppose that you have 80% of items that are subject to no innovation. They are like my initial bottle. Okay, and the quality-adjusted price goes up by 4% between yesterday and today. Okay, suppose that 10% of the items they have innovation without creative destruction. So it's like my second example, the bottle to which I change the top, and that's the quality-adjusted price goes by minus 6%. And suppose that 10% of the item, you know, it's creative destruction. And again, they generate an increase in quality-adjusted price of minus 6. And suppose that the true inflation rate is 2 and the true TFP growth rate is 2. Well, the total is 4. So the monetary growth, the growth in monetary terms will be 4%. We assume that the statistical office knows 4%. What they don't know is how the 4% divide between growth and inflation. Because when they will compute inflation, they will ignore these guys. They will say they don't exist. So they will say 80 out of 90, 8 over 9, they have 4% inflation. And 10 over 90, that means 1 over 9, they have minus 6. So they will mismeasure inflation. They will overestimate it at 2.9%. So they will estimate inflation at 2.9. They know that the increase in monetary value was 4, and they will therefore deduce that the growth in the real growth was 4 minus 2.9, which is 1.1, and therefore they are missing 0.9 of growth. That's the whole point, you see. So that's the basic reasoning there. Okay? And so what we try to do is to develop a methodology to compute missing growth. We found figures that are very close to that, actually. So I don't want to bother you with math. I know this morning you had a lot of math with my colleague from Toulouse, so I won't give you more math. Exact, c'est dommage. Je suis devenu trop soft. I became too soft. So you suppose that you have the final good is produced competitively with a continuum of intermediate inputs. And suppose that the growth in this model comes from two sources, either the improvement in the quality of the intermediate inputs due to innovation, or to the increase in N, which is an increase in the variety of inputs. And sigma is the elasticity of substitution between the inputs, okay? So you can have three sources of growth, either creative destruction in any sector, in any intermediate sector at arrival rate lambda D. You have a guy from outside that bumps you out and improve your product by gamma D, okay? In any sector where you didn't have creative destruction, the incumbent may himself or herself come up with an innovation at rate lambda I and innovate by size gamma I. And you also have the fact that capital N can increase with an arrival rate of new varieties, okay, which may be better than the old by a factor gamma N. So you can compute that missing growth is equal to this. That means missing growth, which is due to what? It's due to the statistical office. They don't factor in the new goods, and they don't factor in creative destruction. They only get the innovation by incumbents. So if the statistical office, if they were not missing that, you see the missing growth from the fact that there is the creative destruction goods, and there is the new variety. If you didn't have those, there will be no mismeasurement. You will have log of 1 here, and you would have a missing growth of 0. You see? So, so the thing is to say, well, in fact, what's nice is that you have a method to bypass this complicated thing. You don't need to compute the lambdas and the gammas. You can directly compute missing growth by looking at the continuers. You have plants. Plants correspond to products, so to a constant number of products. And you look at the plants that survive between yesterday and today. Which assumption did we make? What is imputation? Is that I do as if those were the only guys. When I concentrate on the continuers, that's the thing. So if the market share SIT T minus 1 is the market share of the continuers between T minus 1 and T, at t minus 1, and SITT is the market share of discontinuers at time t. So I look only at those who were there yesterday and are there today. If their market share have not changed, that means that their growth was like the growth of the whole economy. So by concentrating on them, by doing imputation, I didn't miss anything. I miss only if it turns out that their share went down. So for example, if SITT, which is their market share today, is less than the market share yesterday, it's because they grew less than the overall economy. So by concentrating on them, I am missing some growth. You see what I mean? And so that's the idea there. So you just have to look at the dynamics of the market share of the continuers, of those who were there yesterday and are there today. And you look at the plants, and you know their employment share, their payroll share, and it's very easy. And it's nothing could be simpler than this formula, okay? So in fact, using this, with the US, we did an analysis at plant level using the longitudinal business database, which cover all plants with at least one employee. Between 76 2013, we took sigma equal 4, the elasticity of substitution from a number of serious trade papers that now we are looking at sigma in more detailed way, and we find very similar numbers. And we found this. You see, what's remarkable is that here is the measured growth, the measured TFP growth in the US. And that's the missing growth. And you see that still you have a decline between this period and this period. There is a decline in total TFP growth, even when you add the missing. But what's interesting is that the missing in the later period represent a higher fraction of the total. So that means that 10% of the slowdown you can explain with this, but only 10%. You need to explain another 90%. So that in that respect. But still for me, I don't call that stagnation. You see, that at least I can tell Gordon, in France, we had 2 years ago 0%, and we had the Minister of Finance who would say it was great news that we didn't have negative growth. No, I'm caricaturing. No, it's not that. We were very happy to have zero growth at some point. Now we are happier too. But here they have 1.72 they do productivity growth. So I mean, if you take the total growth, they are above 2.5. So I don't call that stagnation. What I don't explain is the decline, but the stagnation there is not. We are way above what statistical give you. Okay, you can do the same with France. So if you take the head counts, which is what I use for the US, here is full-time employment equivalent. You get over the later period almost similar figures between France and US. But the thing is that in France, this represents a bigger share of the total. So if we are right, this is almost half. I mean, half of the, in the later period, the missing growth was almost as much as the measured growth. And so I don't want to bother you too much. Sorry, I'm done? Je fais pas? Alors je continue. I just conclude. Okay? So the missing growth due to imputation is about 0.6 per year in US on average over the past 30 years, 0.5 per year in France over the period that we look at. And so the thing is that what should be done on the data ground? I mean, what you could do is collect data on market share of incoming and outgoing products and estimate their substitutability. So there is a big thing to be done there. One thing that could be done already is to base imputation only on those surviving products with innovation, not all surviving products. That's something you could do immediately and already improve a bit, reduce a bit the amount of missing growth. What should you care about it? Why, for example, inflation target, the debate on inflation target, as was mentioned by you before, is that the macroeconomists use these numbers. So when think of inflation target, but in France, inflation is below what we say. So we should tell the German finance minister, I know in Germany they are very obsessed by inflation, that at least, it's less of a problem than they might think. Maybe that would influence them, Another thing is that you may want to reassess the effect of various policies on growth. But when you assess them, you want to make sure that you measure growth properly. They have all kind of papers that assess, look at welfare effects of growth policies. And then finally, there is a debate on secular stagnation, and I will be done there. I told you that I explained only 10% of the decrease in TFP growth. But in fact, there are other candidates. So first, I mean, there are other sources of increasing or increased mismeasurement over time. So I know you talk, I mentioned them, but free access has increased, you know, like blogs or like Wikipedia, all these things. On price quality improvement, now you can take a photo picture at zero price. Before it used to be very costly to do. You don't have to buy Kodak and développer les pellicules et tout ça. Okay, increased globalization. You don't know how to, you know, to attribute a product. For example, Apple has suppliers from 28 different countries. How you apportion to each country? Bon. So those are things that I'm sure you'll talk about. But there have been other people, you know, like Bloom, Chad Jones, Van Reenen, and a fourth co-author, I don't know who he is, I forgot, and usually he's in the room. New ideas harder to find. They have a paper claiming that new ideas are harder to find. But this I like the paper very much, but I think the paper doesn't prove the thing. But I don't want to. So that was an attempt. There's been another one saying in the US, but that would not apply to France as much, end of Cold War. When you had the Cold War, it's true that the US government, you know, they created NASA, they created NSF, they created the National Science Foundation, they created the National Institute of Health. Those were creations of the Cold War. Now that the Cold War is over, there is less of an incentive for government to be involved in investing in fundamental research and things like that. That has been an explanation put forward. It's not the one I take myself, but it's an interesting. Another one by Gilles Berset, for example, another said that credit has become more relaxed, and therefore you let less efficient innovators or less efficient firms remain on the market. That could have been a source of declining productivity growth. And there is one on which I work, which is declining competition. I believe, like, for example, the GAFAs, or the other, these kind of firms have invaded various markets and put entry barriers to those. And so I think that there's been some various papers showing that there is an increasing concentration of market shares, that there is a declining labor share, and there is declining TFP growth. And the thing is to relate those things. And a view that one might have is that very successful innovators like the GAFAs become entrenched incumbents. It's a very Schumpeterian story. Now you become an entrenched incumbent, and you use that power to prevent entry or to make entry of other people more difficult. So it would imply that there is less innovation, so declining growth, but at the same time, those who make it are the very good ones. Hence, you observe that the average markup goes up. So that's the kind of story that I'm now exploring with the same co-authors, Clino in particular from Stanford. I think that's the next thing, and I hope next year we'll be able to show you our progress on secular stagnation. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Philippe.